The meeting between President Donald Trump and President Vladimir Putin, set against the ongoing tensions between Russia and Ukraine, is certainly not just any event in geopolitical history. It marks a moment where not only the people of Ukraine, but the entire world, must pay attention, because it could redefine the future of one nation and possibly reshape the world order. The signals from negotiations like this one have the potential to alter the global political landscape in the near future. The situation today, with the Russia-Ukraine war dragging on for several years, vividly demonstrates how rapidly the modern world is changing. Geopolitics, secretive negotiations, and face-to-face meetings between world leaders have the power to transform everything. However, one aspect we cannot overlook is the inherent uncertainty of these meetings, the absence of the directly impacted countries, such as Ukraine, from major decisions. Any change in the relationship between major powers can lead to significant shifts in the entire political and economic structure of the world. Geopolitics is not just the concern of one nation, it is a global issue. Decisions made behind closed doors, during meetings between leaders like Trump and Putin, can directly affect economies, military alliances, and even the lives of millions of people. The meeting between Trump and Putin is not merely a diplomatic chat. It is a meeting between two individuals with significant global influence, and it has the potential to alter the course of a war, making changes that are hard to predict in the relationships between nations. Therefore, the absence of Ukraine from these negotiations, despite being the invaded party, is a factor that cannot be dismissed. It serves as a reminder of the importance of participation and having a voice in the major decisions, especially when a nation's sovereignty and future are at stake. The U.S.-Russia relationship is one of the most complex and challenging in modern history. Its history is full of fluctuations, from the Cold War to later peace negotiations. However, this relationship has always been filled with elements of surprise and unpredictability. In the context of the Ukraine war, President Trump has maintained a relatively open stance toward Russia. This is not obvious, considering the long-standing tensions between the two nations. However, it shows an important aspect of Trump's policy, the necessity of direct negotiations, even if this goes against the traditional diplomatic approach of the U.S. Trump himself has stated that he could resolve the issue in 24 hours, which, although oversimplified, reflects a deeper truth about how he views the situation. It's about deals and national interests. On the other hand, Putin has always been steadfast in protecting Russia's interests in Ukraine. However, his strategy has not always succeeded, as Russia's military actions have tarnished the country's global image and power. Many in the political world believe Putin may be seeking a negotiation to avoid further escalation of the war while still holding on to the territories Russia has seized. The reason why Ukraine is at the center of this war is not new. Known for its strategic importance in Eastern Europe, Ukraine has long been a crucial battleground in the competition between major powers, particularly between Russia and the West. However, Ukraine's direct participation in peace talks is a significant question. With a war dragging on and millions of lives affected, their absence from direct negotiations raises major concerns about self-determination and respect for national sovereignty. President Zelensky has consistently expressed concern that any agreement between Russia and the U.S., without Ukraine's involvement, could lead to an unfair deal that results in territorial divisions and undermines the country's independence. However, in a world filled with uncertainty, where political decisions can change at any moment, Zelensky's concerns serve as a cautionary tale for the international community about what might happen when major powers make decisions that affect smaller nations without their direct input. Ukraine is not the only war that major nations are involved in. It is part of a larger global competition between superpowers, not just over territories but also over influence and power in the international arena. This reminds us of the long history of Cold Wars and tense negotiations, where major nations have always sought to protect their own interests, even at the expense of smaller countries. The U.S., with its dominant global influence, has always sought to maintain its power and sway in Europe and other strategic regions. Conversely, Russia, with its deep historical and cultural roots, has always sought to protect its sphere of influence in former Soviet territories. This creates a continuous rivalry between the two nations, which, although not always directly confronting, impacts every country caught between them. So, where will the future of international relations, particularly regarding Ukraine, lead from here? Trump and Putin's meeting is a clear sign that international relations are changing rapidly. In an uncertain and volatile world, nations will continue to seek deals that serve their interests, regardless of the potential consequences for other nations. Ukraine, despite being at a disadvantage in this war, will have to find ways to defend its territorial integrity in a world where decisions are sometimes unfair, and where smaller nations are left out of negotiations. However, one thing is clear: this country will not easily abandon its fight for freedom and independence. Meanwhile, major nations like the US and Russia will continue to compete for influence and power, not just in Ukraine but around the globe. This raises important questions about the future of smaller nations and how they can protect their interests in a world where geopolitics is constantly shifting. The meeting between Trump and Putin is not just a significant event in international relations, it is a reminder of the importance of participation and having a voice in the major decisions. The situation in Ukraine will not just determine the future of one nation but could also reshape the world order. The lessons from this war will be crucial for future generations, on how nations interact, how to protect sovereignty, and how to maintain stability in a world that is constantly changing.